Order to call the meeting to order. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, March 27th, 2023. Invocation and introduction.
Everybody bow with me, please. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for everyone that's here. Pray that you'll just give the wisdom to us to make wise decisions and do what's best for our community. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Do we have any citizen comments? Okay. Next thing is approval of the minutes.
Have a motion for the approval of the minutes of our previous meeting.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Meetings are approved. Minutes. All right, we'll go through our consent agenda. For athletics, our spring softball, we're going to start up today, actually. We have 35 teams, which is right in line with what we had last spring. I think we had 34, so we actually beat it by one. Adult kickball also begins today. We have 5 teams. Last year for spring we had 4. So that one kind of, kickball is a little bit less than softball all the time, so that's normal for us. On the recreation side, we had our kite festival on March 15th. It was a very big success. You see we have 1,800 participants. That's a 140% increase over last year. Last year we had 750, I believe, was the final number that we had, and very little wind. So a kite festival and not much wind, you know, there were a lot of people running and dragging kites, so that one it was still fun. Everybody had a great time, but it was hard to get kites up in the air, but you know, people still had a good time. But we had food trucks. We had a lot of community partners out there that really support our department, and we're very thankful for that. We had games, food trucks. I mean, it was really a festival. I mean, it was a great thing, and people really enjoyed it. The next thing we have coming up that I wanted you guys to be aware of is our Easter extravaganza, egg extravaganza. That'll be held on April 1st. Last year we had 3,500 people show up, and we do that on Lear softball fields 1 through 4, so we can divide it up by age group. So we have that, and it's always busy every year we've had it. So I'm looking for a little bit of an increase probably this year if weather works with us. So I think that one it'll be a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to watch, I know. But yeah, 3,500 is quite a few people. So, you know, that's kids. So you're trying to run them around, and it's fun for everybody. And just to give you a little bit of an idea about the kite festival, it was hard to get good pictures of the kites, like perspective-wise of how many kites were actually in the air. But there's what we had at the entryway. There's kind of a little bit of one, and this one is, I know it's hard to see, but if you can see all the they look like little specks up in the air. That's all kites. So, and there were some that you couldn't even really see in this picture, but I mean, it was pretty amazing the number of different kites that were up in the air, and we had people come from all over. We had people that drove all the way from Houston to come to this. So, I mean, it's for the second year, it's really become quite a draw. We had people from Houston, we had people from Tyler, we had people from the Metroplex area that came, so it's really a draw into the community, and people really enjoyed it. Just a little bit of overview on our maintenance report. Still doing striping on the trails. Highway 80 trailhead is done. At Lear Park, the striping for the RV parking area is completed, and so is the splash pad. So that's kind of tedious doing that striping because everything has to be just right, so it takes a little bit of time. Installed some picnic tables at Pinewood Park. We also completed the pour-in-place repairs at Spring Hill Park. That was just, we had some holes and areas where it was coming up, so that one just takes some time. When you put that product down, it has to cure. So that takes a little bit of time once you get it down, that people have to stay off of it so it can set before you can reopen, but all of that is completed. For athletic facilities, support for leagues and tournaments, that one's first for a reason. This past weekend we had softball and baseball going. I think we ended up with 86 teams for baseball, and I believe it was right at 30 for softball. So that number of teams, that's a lot of people in town. So that's a lot of fields that have to be prepped and taken care of prior to and during those tournaments. So our ball field crew's really been working really hard to keep all that stuff where it needs to be to support those events. And we installed rule signs for the turf fields at Lear. On the soccer, you know, there are some things that you just don't want on those fields. One of the big things is sunflower seeds. They'll get down in that turf and then they rot and it just causes problems and it's very hard to clean up. So we just want people to be mindful of that. Also, we installed 3 new scoreboards at Lear. 2 were on baseball, 1 was on softball, and I don't think we have any more to go in, do we, Mike? Or how many? McQuarter, we have 1 to go in. That one was the tree that took that one down, so we'll have to get that one replaced as well. All right, our staffing update. For the current moment, we have 2 full-time rec positions open. That's our marketing coordinator and our aquatics coordinator. Not a good time of the year for us to be down on our aquatics coordinator position because we're quickly approaching that season. On the O&M side, we have 4 full-time maintenance positions open, 3 on the athletic field crew, and 1 in park maintenance. We have some people that are actually going through the process now, and I think they're nearing the end of that process to be hired on. How many? 3. We have 3, so if all those work out, then we'll be fully staffed on the athletic side, and we'll still have the 1 maintenance position open. And on our part-time rec positions, we have 6 of those, and 2 of those are lifeguards, and those are guards at Paula Martin Jones. We have 8 positions for lifeguards over there, so we're at 6 right now. Guthrie Park parking, Stantec, same guys that are here. They gave us the preliminary designs previously. A draft report is going to be submitted. And that's where we stand on that. As soon as we get more information on that, I'll share it with you. Armstrong spray pad update is underway. They've removed the old equipment there. That was the first spray pad in Longview. So the new equipment was delivered here. We've had that. Our Public Works Department helped us out. They got everything removed off of the pad itself. Then the next step in that process is they have to cut all the lines, cap those lines, and then pressure test, and then we have to remove the existing building that houses all the valves and controls for the operating system. And once that's done, they'll be able to go back in and start assembling the new equipment and start putting in the new control system and the new valving and everything. So we anticipate that will be done in fairly short order. It's not a really time-consuming thing. It's just a matter of getting here and doing it. So hopefully that will be ready in conjunction with all of our other spray pads to be able to open on April the 1st. And then also we were approached by a local artist that wanted to do a mural at one of our parks. And we looked and McQuarter has, are y'all familiar with the white building that's kind of in between the park, the playground and the ball fields? Okay, that's the area where this is her initial design, and she's going to have to tweak it just a little bit, but the nonprofit that's going to pay for the cost of doing that, they're promoting like mental health awareness, drug use as a negative thing, and they want to put that out there, and this is just to kind of send people in the right direction. And I think the message is extremely positive, but she's going to have to change it because where she was going to put it initially was quite a bit smaller than this. So I think she was pretty excited about the increase in size of the area she has to work with. So there may be a few changes, but I think that's going to be pretty close to the final design. All right, and I'm going to turn it over to Stantec so they can do their thing with you guys. They're doing our Parks and Recreation and Open Space Master Plan update. There we go. There you go. Appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, board members and Mr. Chair. We're really excited to be here today to present an update on the Parks Open Space Master Plan that we've been working on. It's been a really exciting process, and especially over the next month, we're going to see a lot of traction and positive momentum gained in this process. My name is Mark Maldonado. I am the Landscape Architecture and Planning Discipline Lead for Stantec's Texas team. I'm also the lead planner, and with me today is Colt Yorick, who's the project manager on the project, landscape architect and planner as well, and then Mona, who is one of our urban planners and GIS analysts. And not with us today, but a big contributor to the project is Ismael Segovia, who's been working a lot behind the scenes. But today's presentation is really just to kind of bring everybody up to speed in regards to the process and where we're at and what the process really entails. And then we're going to do some visioning activities, and then how we can really use your help to help get community feedback, really promote where we're at with the Parks Master Plan. And then we'll conclude with just talking about kind of the next steps and what you can expect from us after today's exercises. But one of the questions that I get asked all the time is like, what's the point? Why even do a Parks Master Plan? You know, and beyond the visionary document that a Parks Master Plan is, it really is a planning document, a guide that the city and staff and other members of the community can use as a visionary and guiding document that can assist with growth and quality of life and capital improvement projects. But it's really of identifying the deficiencies and seeing where the opportunities are and how you can kind of fill in some of those gaps, but then also looking at how the goals, the economics, and then again, the social and quality of life issues can kind of overlap to that to really kind of elevate the overall parks and recreation system. Beyond that, in Texas specifically, it's if you have an adopted Parks Master Plan, Texas Parks and Wildlife tends to favor you a little bit better in regards to funding opportunities. They see that you've really invested in the document, that you're thinking about long-range planning, and you're identifying projects that have that kind of domino effect, that multiple benefit effect. So that's one of the perks that really stands out to Texas Parks and Wildlife, in addition to some of the other agencies when you apply for any kind of grants or funding opportunities. But beyond those opportunities specifically, a Parks Master Plan can do so much more if it's done right. So one of the graphs or graphics that we use is this graphic here that's on the screen, where it just kind of presents a wider lens of what a Parks Master Plan can do. So you have the societal benefits, where it really ensures that you kind of elevate the quality of life, but also give people these open spaces, these civic spaces to come together. If there's one thing that COVID taught us, was the importance of outdoor spaces, you know, and the sense of pride that the community gets, where they're able to gather outdoors and have this place of refuge, if you will. The personal health benefits. So not only from an exercise standpoint, but mental health, you know, that place just to go and have a place of refuge, you know, a place where you can connect with the outdoors. You have the economic benefits, and this is something that we really pride ourselves in, where it's more than just a park. It has the opportunity, these spaces have the opportunity to have economic development impacts, but also economic impacts in a positive way, either in regards of land values or, you know, potential tax revenues, or even to be a catalyst site that at that point can ripple across. Oftentimes, it starts with like one food truck at a park, you know, that then catalyzes to an event, that then catalyzes to the betterment of the neighborhood and so on. So kind of taking the barriers away and really envisioning that there's so much more than parks can do. And then lastly, the most obvious, but not to be underrepresented, are the environmental benefits. You know, more and more with the flooding that's happening, and then you know, temperatures rising and whatnot, the environmental benefits that parks and open space contribute to the overall green network and drainage network of a city, not only at a local scale but at a regional scale, is extremely critical. So beyond just parks, the Parks Master Plan has the ability to do so much more, and these are all kind of different perspectives that will be incorporated into the overall deliverable. So when we talk about the Parks Open Space Master Plan, really what we're focusing on is the current parks and future parks within a city's city limits. You know, so there might be additional parks that are either at a county level, regional level, or sometimes even outside of those city limits that that may or may not influence the service that's provided by a city. But for this particular exercise, really what we're looking at are going to be within the city limits. with the existing inventory, but then also future opportunities as well. Not to say that we won't acknowledge some of those other considerations like county parks, like regional parks, where they might have overlapping service areas. But again, it's really kind of looking in the lens of the municipality or the city to say, where do we stand with the current level of service? Where are there gaps, and then where's there opportunities for improvement? So in general, our process is 10 steps, and it looks a little bit complicated, but I'm going to kind of walk y'all through these a little bit fast here. And the process does progress quite quickly once we get initiated and started, which we have. So early on in January, I believe late January, we had our kickoff where we started reviewing the existing documents and plans that the city has. That includes like a comprehensive plan, future thoroughfare plan, any kind of park master plans, any kind of existing documents. We start also looking at the demographic assessments of a community profile, growth populations. We look at existing demographics. So we do that along with some additional background research. At the time, we also will do site visits and look at existing conditions of some of these parks to see where there are initial identified opportunities for improvement. And then we start also looking at the parks, recreation, and facilities inventory and analysis. So again, looking at the existing inventory of things, looking at where they stand not only from a condition standpoint, but level of service, amenities, what kind of programming is happening at these existing parks, et cetera. Number 3 is really kind of where we're at today, where we start looking at input gathering. We kick off the community survey, we start doing stakeholder interviews, and we really start building that consensus, so we can start developing our vision and goals. Number 4, at the same time that's happening, in the background, what we're doing, we're looking at the National Recreation and Parks Association guidelines. We're looking at benchmarking the level of service to see where you guys compare to national standards, and is there that gap deficiency. So we look at going on to number 5, you look at the demand-based methodology, standards-based methodology, and then resource-based methodology. So demand-based is really going to be the community feedback, what we get from the community, from surveys, from any kind of comments, anything along those lines. Standard-based methodology is looking at those NRPA standards. So compared to peer cities, compared to the national benchmark, where do you compare? And how is that? Is it in line, or is there a deviation from some of those standards? And then resource-based methodology, we're looking at your natural systems, your ecosystems. You're looking at rivers, streams, corridors, transportation networks that might dissect connectivity or prevent connectivity of some way, or prevent or present opportunities and challenges in some regard. So the reason we look at those 3 things at once is because, hypothetically, if NRPA says, according to your demographic, we should have 20 pickleball courts, but we don't hear anything about pickleball courts from community survey or demand base, then why would we recommend that? So that's where we really have to see the 3 different methodologies and see what key themes start surfacing to the top. And those key themes are the ones that really start guiding us in regards to the recommendations and how we kind of progress to those next steps. But that really happens during number 5, during the needs assessment. Shortly after that, we'll start developing our overall recommendations and any kind of specific park master plans that need specific attention. If there are opportunities for new parkland development, or if there's opportunities to reprogram some parks, we might focus a little bit more energy and effort and visualization on a couple parks just to really kind of show the design intent or the opportunity that exists at some of these parks. After that, we'll come back and we'll have another exercise with the stakeholders and park board council members, et cetera, to determine the priorities and priority list to say, okay, well, as we develop some of these recommendations, are there some priorities that maybe start, evolving to specific capital improvement projects or funding opportunities and identifying some of those partnerships, et cetera. If all of that sounds good, we progress to number 8, which is the high-level planning budget development cost, and then again, identifying those partnerships. Oftentimes, it's not only funding, but there's some regulatory work that needs to happen. There's some policy work, organizational work that might need to happen, where you need to bring in some of those partners to help implement some of these visions and some of these strategies that are recommended in the Parks Master Plan. Lastly, we start working on implementation strategies, and then looking at the adoption for the city council to adopt the plan formally, to really kind of embrace it as a living, breathing document, a roadmap for the next 10 years to use concurrently with the city's comprehensive plan as for betterment of the city. So in general, that's the progress that we're going to be. That's the process that we're going to be using to get to the final deliverable. And again, right now we're in that visionary goal stage, which is about step 3. At the same time, we've kind of initiated a little bit of step 4, which is the NRPA standards. So one of the things that we do when we kick off the community survey, we really try to get all the quote-unquote plan champions, the plan advocates, the advocacy groups that are really excited, the loud voices, to help us and really kind of promote the ability for the community to provide feedback on the improvement of the Parks Master Plan and Parks system in general. So one of the things that we've created these flyers both in English and Spanish, where we've made it really convenient for somebody to scan the QR code and go directly to the survey, where we're going to get the most feedback possible from that survey. That's going to help guide those recommendations that we mentioned previously. In addition to that survey, like I mentioned, we have the social media and digital flyers that we're willing to share with you guys, so you guys can also help encourage community members to get the participation and more importantly get the awareness out, where people have the opportunity to voice their opinions, their vision, their ideas, etc. In addition to that, we have the project website that we've created, and if you want to go ahead and click that social pinpoint site. So the project website is where we're going to direct everybody to go if they have any general questions or they need any information. This is where they can get involved. This is where they can find out where there's going to be community pop-ups, etc. But it's also going to be a place where they can provide a lot of their feedback. So if you look at the different tabs that are up here, you have home, get involved, events, etc. So if you click on get involved, this is where we're going to have a lot of activity. And just so you guys know, already this website has had over 800 unique views already. And we've already received 59 comments. So we're off to a great start. Tonight is going to be another good event where we're going to promote and encourage, but what we really need is people to take the survey. That's where we're going to get most of the feedback that we're going to need to help guide those recommendations and decisions. So here, this is where people can go to the project website, click the survey, or if you scan the QR code, it'll take you directly to that survey. The survey does take about 20 minutes or so, but again, it's going to be the most critical piece of information that we're going to use in developing the recommendations. Beyond the survey, there's 2 more opportunities for people to provide feedback. So maybe they don't want to provide the survey, or maybe they want to give specific information that the survey doesn't capture. So the 2 opportunities and exercises are, number 1, map it, where it's an idea map. You're able to click that green button and it zooms in on a city map where you can drag and drop comments, ideas, pictures, and you can like somebody's idea, etc. So if there's somebody that has a specific improvement idea or a dislike or something, they can drag and drop. And as you can tell already, there's some interaction on the interactive map here. And then if we go back, to the Post-it, the idea wall, this is another fun digital way of conversing, but literally it's like a digital Post-it wall where people are able to post different ideas, thoughts, and there are different threads that people can kind of continue the dialogue, the conversation. They can like, dislike. So What we'll do after about a month of these being live and being out promoted into the public, we'll combine the survey data along with the map it, along with the idea wall, plus any kind of other comments that we receive from the community, like in any of the pop-up events, some of the activities that we'll be doing here tonight or this afternoon with you guys. And we kind of put all of that information into that demand-based methodology. Then when we do that, take that information with the standards base, with the resource base, put it all in the blender, and then we'll start seeing those key themes start surfacing. So if they say, for example, we need more sports fields, okay, so then we'll see, okay, well, where is there opportunity here? Where is their level of service? What kind of sports fields are being desired? How does that compare to national standards and benchmarks and peer cities? From a resource standpoint, are there opportunities like in floodplains or outside of floodplains, where we can improve connectivity or provide some of these amenities, to the community to offset, some of that gap and some of those needs. So that's how the three methodologies start blending together. But the project website is going to be critical for anybody to be engaged and stay informed on the project progress and opportunities to provide feedback. As you can tell up here, there's also an events tab where we're trying to post all the different events where community pop-ups or any kind of engagement where we're going to be talking about parks and the Parks Master Plan. The planning process just kind of gives an overall four-phase approach to what I've described in steps 1 through 10 for you guys. And then the last two tabs, project document, and then project documents just has the any kind of documents that may be relevant to the Parks Master Plan, but this is also where we'll host the draft of the final Parks Master Plan for the community to review before final adoption. Lastly, that little G symbol there, that's a symbol for translation. So if anybody desires to translate the project site or the survey in whatever language, they're able just to use that button, scroll down, and translate to whatever language they desire. But in general, this is probably going to be one of the best resources that we're going to be able to use to promote to get the most feedback as possible. Anything that you guys need, please get with city staff so they can relay that to us. If there's a way that we can provide y'all with additional flyers or kind of any kind of a push for the survey, please let us know. I did put one of the big boards out here in the entry that's in English and Spanish for encouraging people to take the survey. We'll have that out tonight. We also printed another one to leave with staff so that they can use in some additional pop-up events. But again, we encourage you guys to also share that on social media. If print out small flyers, hand out as you see people, encourage them to take the survey. I would love to challenge y'all and see if we can get 1,000 survey responses. It's extremely difficult, but it would be awesome if we can. So once a week, we'll be able to provide updates of where we stand with the survey counts. The survey will be open for about 1 month, more or less. But that's going to be the challenge here, is to get as robust community feedback as possible. And it's not only to help us with the recommendations and the next steps, really it's also to prepare y'all for successful funding opportunities. The more community engagement and feedback that you have, the better that you're going to be pre-positioned for better grant opportunities, funding opportunities, because it's going to be a community-based plan. So I'm going to pause right there. Is there any questions up to this point on anything that I've covered?
How do we get the people to use the parks and the trails? I know that's an open-ended question, and I don't know what you've been seeing. A gentleman just told me this morning there were 2 people that had, one from Oregon and one from Washington, had bought homes in Longview sight unseen, because one thing was the parks and the recreation that we had available to them. But how is we just, as lay people, how can we get more people on the Paul Borman, on the Long Trail? How can we get them out there?
So that's where it's a complicated question, but you have to think of this as a visionary document that is not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
If we listen to what people want and we say these are the trends and this is kind of what's happening, that's one thing that a lot of different municipalities that we work with, that's one of the challenges that we see often. They think that, oh, we develop one park, we're done, or we don't need to touch that park for another 10 years. That's not the case. It's just like anything else. There are trends. There are different programming advances. There's different demographics, that happen where the needs, the wants, the desires tend to change. If the park programming is very static, where it doesn't change, and what I mean by that is if you have the one slide with the two swings, and that's really the only thing that there is to do out there, then the likelihood of that park being very successful is not going to be very great. So then you start thinking, okay, well, how can we offer flexibility? How can we offer flex use of fields? How can we offer seasonal interest? How can we offer different programming for different age groups? How can we offer somebody to come and spend some time out here where they're able to get from here to there and not get in their car? But if we want them to get to here to there, do we have water for them? Do we have bathrooms for them? Do we have wayfinding for them? Do we have something where by doing this improvement, perhaps the business owners are able to capitalize on that, and capture some of that opportunity as well? That's where you start seeing this layered effect. So when I mentioned some of these key themes start surfacing to the top, that's really what I mean. Is how do we prevent things from being so static that they're going to be an old trend, or if they use them once and they're going to get bored? How do you keep them engaged? How do you keep evolving the park system? And that's why one of the first slides that I showed, the different benefits to a park system, that's why that's so important, to show that we have to keep investing in our parks because they're more than just a park. If we're able to have a trail that somehow connects to businesses where, and we're able to bring some kind of opportunity for revenue from these improvements, then it becomes a win-win. People start spending more time there, and businesses are able to benefit, the city's able to benefit, but also the quality of life starts increasing, and the activity starts increasing as well. So that's one thing, and that's probably the hardest challenge that we have, is to say, okay, how do we, it would be so easy just to say, well, here's a blank slate, let's start from scratch, and here's, $40 million worth of ideas, good luck. That's not what we do. It's, build on your existing foundation and say, okay, where are the biggest gaps, where are the biggest needs, and where can we provide some recommendations that are going to give you that domino effect of benefits, where it's not only going to be a connectivity goal, is going to be a economic goal, is going to be a programming goal, is going to be a increased amenity goal, etc. So that's one thing that we start looking at when we get the community feedback, when we look at benchmarking, and then we look at trends. We start saying, okay, well, what is the demographic here? The demographic of even between a 2 to 5 year old and a 13-year-old is extremely different, but we need to prepare, for those different age groups, and then the next generation, or the generation of their parents and their parents, and making sure that we're programming spaces with flexibility and diversity, more importantly.
I did have one question. Any idea on numbers on the survey so far?
So far, we only have one, I believe, and that's, which I'm not worried about. I was actually, typically it's the other way around. Typically, we start seeing a lot of numbers on the survey, and then the feedback, idea wall and mapping wall kind of starts trickling in. The map and the idea wall is definitely something that doesn't take 20 minutes. Somebody can spend 2 minutes and just drop it in there. Yeah. That's where, again, we put all of that information in that same funnel to kind of dissect the feedback from the community. But We will be promoting that survey heavily tonight, and really from tonight on for the next 30-ish days. We want to make sure that community members get exhausted of hearing, take the survey.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, and it just, yeah, in our defense, it just went live, I think Friday? Yeah,
Okay.
because, yeah, so tonight is really kind of the kickoff to the survey. We don't want to open up a survey without people really understanding the process, or like why their feedback really matters.
and obviously, 1,000's the goal
Right.
to hit. Is there like a low number that's kind of a problem number where you got to start leaning a little bit heavier on the national standards as opposed to the survey numbers?
There's not, if you talk to a statistician and, you know, research people, 484, 487 is their magic number, you know, to be a good, accurate cross-representation, if it's done right across different districts of the community, et cetera. Because of the margin of error, we really like to kind of really beef that number up. But again, for us who aren't statisticians, like, we like to see the bigger the number, the better. And again, when you're applying for grants and funding, we have a chapter just on outreach and engagement, you know, where we're going to basically summarize all of the different feedback that we got and opportunities. And the reason we do that is intentionally for anybody who pursues any grants or funding opportunities for some of our recommendations, to extract that language and submit in there and say, this is really a community-based plan, this is what our community needs, and specifically, we see this funding going to this opportunity that supports their feedback.
Okay, great, thanks.
Well, naturally, the success of the survey is by the number of people that use it. And I may have missed this. How are we going to get the lady in South Longview that has 3 children? How are we going to let her know that there's a survey? Let's say that they use the park every Sunday. How can we let her know there's a survey to tell us what she would like to see at the park she goes to?
Yeah. So one of the things in the events tab, again, we really want to make sure, and when we did our scoping meeting, we really expressed the importance that you can't, and I've done this for a long time, you can't just have like a town hall and expect people to come in and you're going to get what you need right then and there. Like, so maybe some people, yes, and we might get, you know, a little dent in what we need, but it's really about convenience. How can you make it the most convenient for somebody to give you their response? So a couple things. One, you go to them. So you go wherever they go, you know, so if they are going to a park or there is an event like the kite event, you know, have a booth there, be there, promote the ideas. 2, make it convenient for them to actually take the survey. So providing the QR code where they can just literally scan it and take it on their phone. You know, if there's a way to, I had one municipality where they weren't very tech savvy, where we promoted it on the AM radio, and we had physical hard copies of the survey, you know, in English and Spanish at City Hall, where people would swing by, pick up a survey, and then they would get mailed in to us. We would put them online and then kind of consolidate the data source into digital format. But I think at the end of the day, it's just going to them, making it convenient, and really just kind of hitting as many sources as possible. If that's, you know, TV, radio, in-person, newsletter, newspaper, HOAs, any kind of relationship opportunities that are identified to say, get the word out. This is where it matters. If you want this, we need to hear it from you. Because if it's not in here, we're really not going to be able to dictate if it's a priority or not.
Well, I think it would be left up to us to maybe use the public service system or public service announcements or
So Gene, let me remind you, the QR code is in every park. So in your scenario, the, you know, young mom with 3 kids, how do we get her to take it at her park? Well, there is a QR code there. We will have printed surveys at City Hall, at Broughton, at Paula Martin Jones, for people who go to those rec centers. And then we're going to put it out on social media. We're going to put it out on our, website, all the different ways, on Channel 5, all the different ways that we have to communicate it.
Because if we don't know, we can't fix it.
Right,
Right.
absolutely.
And that's why we, again, every Monday, will provide a update of where we stand with the surveys. So that we're not waiting to the last 3 days and say we're at 200. It's, hey, this week we got 200, we have 800 to go, let's push and keep pushing and encourage people to, even if they have a QR code or snap a picture of the QR code, text it to all your friends. Get them to share the word, and keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. And it doesn't matter if they're residents, not residents, if they're users of the park, they're going to provide good information. They're going to provide good information because we can see what trends, we can see kind of perception, we can see usage, we can see demographics. So encourage any users of the park system here to take the survey.
Do we separate parks from walking trails? Is there a separation of that, or is that all, do we just put that in the same, I guess we put it in the same,
So it's part of the same system. We think as park, trails, and recreation as one collective system. From an inventory standpoint, we will separate them, and then on the survey questions, they are separated, by trails, connectivity, and then specific parks. And then there's some recreation questions as well.
yeah, because like old people like me, we use a trail, where there's somebody with children and all, they would be using the parks. I would just think that would be two separate entities, but it's all together.
Right.
But the questions are separate.
Yeah.
So you will find questions specifically about the parks, you will find questions specifically about the trails, and then questions specifically about the rec center.
Oh.
Actually, part of that survey, we just ask, why do you not use the
Right.
park system, or why do you use it specifically? So we can get that information from them that, hey, I'm here just for the trails, or hey, I like to use, the playground component, whatever that is. So we try to dive a little bit deeper in those questions once they actually get into the survey. Yes, sir.
I use the trails more than I use the parks. Does that make me an old person? So I just want to make sure.
You what?
I use the trails more than I use the parks. Does that make me
I do
old?
too. Yeah,
Okay,
you're
so
old.
I'm officially an
You're-
old
you're
person. I'd
remember
like to
the-
declare.
You remember the older group, right.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, the part of our project closeout documents will be the raw data from the survey, and all of that's anonymous, but it'll just be the statistics from the responses. So, and the fact that we have them separated, for example, if y'all were to pursue a tech stock grant for a shared use path, you're able to extract like the trail data, and from the survey independently, and really use that to justify that grant application or the conversations with TxDOT to say this was a top priority or top need that was identified by the community. So that is going to be part of the final deliverable as well.
So the key is the success of the survey.
Yes. Yes. That's going to be where we really get the pulse of the community, and we're able to understand kind of their priorities, what are the needs, the desires, the vision, for an improved parks and open space system. So that's going to be the biggest piece of the puzzle for us to really hit the nail on the head.
Now, will any of your work, or I guess y'all's work, will that kind of point us in the right direction on some of these grants as well, of like this is kind of, will be in line with whatever
Yes.
type funding there might
So,
be in general?
One of the things so implementation in that process is probably one of the biggest things that we pay attention to, because if I were to hand over a Parks Master Plan and it was like, it's all pretty, good luck, like it's not fair. And also, where do you even start?
Yeah,
You know,
$6 billion, good luck.
So that's one of the components of the deliverable is going to be a customized funding matrix where it's specific to Longview's demographics and our recommendations. So those things combined, we're going to go into our national database and start pulling out funding opportunities that are identified that matches those two categories.
Right.
And then with that, we're going to say, okay, for example, for playground structures, it's these opportunities. It is going to be the best cheat sheet you have, because it's going to tell you the program, the deadline, if it's matching, not matching, what you can use the funds for. We'll even provide the link and the contact of the person.
Great.
So we're going to have that funding matrix as part of kind of the implementation plan for you to use as that roadmap for the next steps.
Is it possible to include an aspect of that possible local partnership? You know, there's 2 hospitals, there's 4 school districts, ways that, you know, Judson, for example, we need a new state-of-the-art rec center with a Olympic-sized swimming pool. Okay, well, here are some local businesses
Right.
that could partner to make something like that happen,
Yeah.
as opposed to, and grant funding is invaluable for sure, but there's something to be said for local corporate economic development
Absolutely.
partnerships and public-private partnerships.
Right, yeah, and we will identify some of those opportunities and partnerships. We'll ask that, so when we start developing the recommendations and we get into like step 7, step 8, that's really where we want to have that dialogue to say, hey, don't forget about this. You know, we'll mention the obvious ones. You know, sometimes there's good grocery stores, there's technical colleges, hospitality, you know, healthcare industry, schools, ISDs, some of the county, MPO, COG, you know, like some of the regional agencies. But then sometimes there's local, you know, good local investment, you know, philanthropists that are very much in line. So identifying some of those that we can say, bring them to the table, start having some of these conversations, you know, and get them excited of the opportunity. You know, there's a lot of dollars out there that are ready to be spent. They just want to see spent in the right way. And that's one thing that this plan will help y'all do, is to present that idea to say, it's community-based, here's a community vision that's unified, you know, and then here's kind of the next steps. And it's going to take a lot of dollars to get there, but that's where the partnerships come in.
Yeah, for example, I happen to know there's several school districts that have ESSER funds, you know, sitting there, and they're racking their brains, how do we spend this free
Yeah.
government money?
Yep.
And so you pull a couple school districts and you build a facility, and it meets all the criteria,
Right.
and there you are.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and that's the thing, especially if there's opportunity where it would be a win-win. You know, I think that's where, because schools are going through the same thing with construction costs being so high, you know, the pressures of growth and everything else going on. They're also looking for how can we offset some of those burdens, you know, and develop some of these relationships or partnerships. So easily we can kind of identify some of those, but then kind of have that dialogue and identification of some of those strategic partners that are going to be essential in the success of the plan. Any other questions before we progress on a little bit more dialogue exercises, visionary exercises? All right, if not, so the next part of the presentation is a little bit more conversational, a little bit more relaxed, but we're gonna, we have a couple of visionary exercises that we wanted to do with you guys. There are no right or wrong answers. More importantly is just to kind of get an idea of some vision, potential goals, but also just kind of look at perceptions of, and opinions. And these are exercises that we will, will do. These are some exercises that we'll be doing with during the community pop-up events as well, and we plan to do them tonight. So it's going to be really interesting to see the feedback kind of start progressing. And again, we'll consolidate all of this information with that demand-based methodology, along with the survey, the idea wall, and the map it exercise. So if you could take one of the Post-it notes, and I'm going to start with this board here on the side. The board is entitled, "What is your vision?" And it says, legend has it that Ernest Hemingway won a bet by writing the 6-word story. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. What is your 6-word story for Longview's park and recreation system in the year 2040? Imagine you're creating a newspaper headline. What would this headline be? So I'm going to challenge y'all to keep it to 6 words. I don't want to see an essay, and I don't want it to be just a 1-word answer either. So the challenge is 6 words for the vision of the future parks and rec system in the year 2040. So I'll give you all a couple minutes just to brainstorm. And if you wouldn't mind just jotting those down in one of the yellow Post-it notes, your 6 words, and once you're ready, you can just kind of stick it to the front and I'll collect them. Where wanna go? couple more seconds, and we'll wrap it up for this one. All right, so a couple just to read out loud here. A place to play and grow. Connected, uniform, modern, clean, forward, safe. Come walk and play with us. Safe, clean parks with connected trails. Longview's great family park system. So this is a fun little exercise that we like to use just to help us start creating that vision statement and where do we really want the quality and overview of success of the newly imagined Parks and Recreation system. So as you can tell, this was just kind of a sample between the 5 of y'all, but once we start getting a lot of comments from the community, we'll start kind of pulling out these key words, visionary words that will kind of help craft that overall vision statement, but it may even contribute to some of the goals as well. So you start seeing some key themes, in regards to quality of life or family or inclusivity, connectivity, etc. So this is just a fun little exercise we like to do in that regard. So next, similar, but a little bit different, you're going to take the next 3 Post-its, and we have 3 different questions. But how would you improve the existing parks, recreation, and open space system? So question number 1 is, what amenities or facilities would you like to see added to existing parks? So this can be 1 or 2 or 3 words. What amenities or facilities would you like to see added to existing parks? Once you have that, if you just put it in front of you. All right. Question number 2. This is a 1-word response. What existing park needs the most improvements? 1 word. Maybe 2 words. And something park. But that's it. So what existing park needs the most improvements? Max 2 words. All right. And the last question here is, what is the greatest challenge or issue facing existing parks? Alrighty. So, what amenities or facilities would you like to see added to existing parks? So we have pickleball, more water supply, special needs for children, expanded restrooms / water, and additional golf courses. So a little bit of everything maybe. I guess we have 2 regarding more water supply. What existing park needs the most improvements? Some of this handwriting though. Panther Park, Long, Hensley, Penwood, and McWhorter?
McWhorter.
Yeah. What's the greatest challenge or issue facing existing parks? Parking, cost, use. vandals, and marketing. So again, sometimes perception's reality, and that's where we really want to focus on what are some of the recommendations that we can come up with to address some of these issues, and make sure that any kind of stigmas are removed. Make sure that if there is an opportunity to come up with creative ways that can solve, a couple of these concerns with one recommendation, making sure that we kind of bring that to the forefront. But again, I really like some of these exercises because the more that we start seeing them and the more pop-ups that we do, you start getting a lot of feedback from the community, and you start seeing kind of all the different arrays of response. The last two exercises are a little bit more interactive, so I'm going to ask that y'all get up out of your seats and do this. So taking the 3 stickers, you have 3 dots, and out of these amenities, you get to put 1 dot next to your preferred, or your top 3 preferred amenities. So you pick 3, 1 sticker next to each, or all 3 stickers on one line, whichever you prefer, but you only have 3 dots to deal with. And then the second option has to do with funding. So you have a small Ziploc bag with coins, and I believe there's 10 coins. But this exercise is to kind of have y'all wear the hat of the decision makers and a little bit of municipal government administration and spending. So it's how would you divide the spending? So if those were the park dollars a municipality has for the park system, how would you divvy those dollars up? So you're going to take the coins, and there's 4 little cans up here with different topics. So topic number 1 is to upgrade existing equipment at existing parks. Topic number 2 is improve maintenance and operations at parks and facilities. Topic number 3 is development of new parks and recreational facilities. And topic number 4 is develop or improve trails and trail connections. So you take your 10 coins, divide them up however you would like amongst the 4 jars. So if you can, go ahead and maybe start with the 3 dots on that one exercise board, followed by the funding exercise. Don't be shy.
We need more parks, like a lot more.
So just to recap, so on this 3-dot exercise, playgrounds had the most, followed by trails, indoor recreation, and then disc golf. The neat thing about this one here is that we'll have different color dots for different pop-up events. So you'll start seeing this progress and kind of the race start with the different amenities among community members. So this is a really fun exercise that kind of gives you that instant result of amenities. So if there are opportunities to incorporate some of these, that's where we start seeing, okay, well, this is we have room for something. What does that something need to be? And this is where we revert back to some of this information. But again, nice sample of why the survey or feedback is so important to help us guide some of those decisions. And then lastly, on the funding exercise here, it was pretty obvious, but a lot of the coins, or the majority of the coins, went into the development of new parks and recreational facilities, either for land acquisition or the development of new parks. But if you can imagine, again, exercise with a lot of community members, you start seeing these coins at the end. We kind of tally that up and say, okay, well, it's basically another way to say, how could we fund some of these things and what's a matter of importance or priorities? So that was just kind of a sample of what some of the activities that we plan to do with some of the community members, but also some of the activities that we hope to see at some of the community pop-up events to get some additional feedback beyond the survey, the Map It wall, or the idea wall. And then lastly, in conclusion, next steps. So currently, we are scheduling the stakeholder interviews, which we're starting to do those one-on-ones and get some of that additional feedback. We have the community workshop event tonight at the Recreation Center. There are a couple of additional pop-up events that are going to be happening over the next 3 or 4 weeks. And then lastly, we hope to close out the survey around May 7th, where we, at that point, will start getting a better analysis and data dump of all the different feedback and the different methodologies that were used, consolidate those comments to start guiding some of our recommendations. Once we are done with that and we've started developing our primary recommendations, we'll come back to you guys, present those to say, this is what we heard, this is what we saw, and this is kind of what we're recommending. Is there anything else that that you guys need or feel, need a little bit more explanation, but also the next steps? Who are those partnerships? In terms of funding, are there specific priorities that you feel should be moved to the top? And so it's kind of discussing those next steps, and that should happen probably towards middle or late May if I had to put a time frame to it. So that's all I had for you guys. Is there any questions or additional information that you need at this time?
I would just like to say that, I don't know, our success or failure, I think personally, is the success of the survey. How are we going to tell them about the survey? That's the thing. Because if we don't have any response, hardly any response, 1% or 2% or whatever, we're shooting ourselves in the foot, I think. And the success of that, of what you've told us today was very good, and it was very educational, and you've helped us a lot, and these boards are good. But if we get 0 on the survey, it's all for naught. That's just a personal opinion.
Right. Yeah, and there's a couple of creative ways that we can and I know we've with city staff we've kind of explored some of these. I'm going to start with just the fastest way is going to be word of mouth and just getting people, once they take the survey, pass it along to a minimum of 5 to 10 people beyond just yourself, and just let it spread like a wildfire, making sure that they get the word of mouth out as much as possible. In regards to what collectively we could do, I think is making sure that we hit different avenues for different demographics. So don't only rely on social media. If there's a way to do like utility bill inserts or radio or newspaper, any kind of flyer at restaurants, a post office, anything along those lines, city council members encourage them to reach out, and get their constituents engaged and involved. HOAs, library, and then making sure that we go to them at some of the events so that they see us there and they're getting this reminder over and over and over. Honestly, the other big hurdle is not only hitting it very hard at the beginning, but keeping it up, over the next 4 weeks, making sure that we, stay on top of it and keep pushing so that we don't lose momentum and get that feedback that we need,
Well, I was thinking of an insert in the newspaper, but I don't know what percentage of the population reads the newspaper.
Yeah.
Does the family, South Longview with 3 children, they both work or whatever, do they get, no, they don't get the newspaper or something. But that's just my main concern, and hopefully word of mouth or some way, I don't know how we can do it, is,
We will certainly communicate over and over again over the next month through all of our options and all of our available ways to communicate.
well, I just think maybe it gives me something to really zone in on and to work with the city and to try to get this thing up to where, because if nobody does a survey, it doesn't no good, right? I'm through.
I'd like to say this is very encouraging, and I'm excited for this to be happening to Longview with our racquetball, our pickleball, sorry, and our disc golf, and the trail expansion. It's pretty well a very good foundation, maybe, to start something really great here. And I'm really excited about this.
Good to hear.
Well, for two families, one from Oregon, one from Washington, buy houses and move to Longview, Texas without even being here, it says a lot for us.
I think the interactivity and the exercise, it's one thing to take an online survey, but get people, and you guys mentioned you're going to some of the local events, make it fun, get the kids involved. That's one way to drive buy-in from the community. Like
Right.
this is, I've got 5 kids, and so by the time a lot of this stuff takes place, I'm mostly just going to be one of the guys on the trails. But for them, they're going to be, raising.
Then you be putting your grandson.
There you go.
There you go.
Like
But-
this guy does.
Exactly, and so they're the ones that I'm trying to vision this for, and for my kids, my grandkids, and so going to those events, getting them involved in this process. Even if I work for the school district. If you want to have an event at one of our campuses, let me know and we'll make it happen. But driving buy-in from the younger part of our demographic, because they're going to be the ones who.
Right.
It's all
Yeah,
going to be for.
and you brought up a
eventually.
good point. For the survey, we want to hear from everybody. Kids, middle schoolers, high schoolers, families, like grandparents, everybody, the full spectrum, and because there's going to be some things that we're going to be able to do now, and there's some other things that we're not going to be able to do for probably like 8 to 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and by then, a middle schooler is going to be an adult, and, we want to make sure that the Parks and Rec system, is still applicable and at a good quality level of service for them as well, to retain, the local community intact and make sure that they stay here in their own community.
Well, in one of your questions, it said something about 2040. I'll be 101, but I'll still be trying. Any comments or questions? Adjourn?
Yes, sir.